Randall Williams is giving his perspective on the leadership instability that's plaguing the office of the executive mayor in the capital city. And it comes only days after Cilliers Brink was removed from office as mayor through a motion of no confidence in his leadership. Let's take you live to Pretoria.
At the time, that is a false number to give. It gives people a false picture of what the finances of the city is like, whether it's improving or not. And I told him, never report on the 120%. Look at the actual recovery rate of a particular month for which invoices were issued to our customers.
Sorry, Mr. Williams. Is it possible to look at Jack?
Okay.
No, I'm getting I don't know, yeah. Yeah, this way. Yeah,
okay.
Cool. Yeah, sure.
And then again, I read a few weeks ago, a former MMC of the previous executive also stated that the Hammanskraal water issue will finally be resolved. And I was quite surprised because I know there are three phases that had to be implemented in order to resolve the Hammanskraal water issue. And the second phase turned into a disaster because of the fraud and corruption that took place in that particular tender that was issued in 2019. And then he stated that Magalies Water will be providing water to the Themba water treatment plant, and they will now pump drinkable, potable water to the residents of Hammanskraal. And I remember that was a project that I started, that I initiated, that we had to engage with Magalies Water and see if they can't pump water to the Hammanskraal residents. And because I was so intricately involved, I know the limitations of Magalies Water. The Magalies Water does not have the capacity to provide Hammanskraal residents with water. They will only be able to partially alleviate the problem in Hammanskraal. So only a percentage of people of Hammanskraal will get clean water through that process. The other point is, what he completely left out is that the Rooiwal wastewater treatment plant will still be spewing filthy water into the polluted water, into the Apis River, and into the dam that's supposed to feed the Themba water treatment plant. So the farmers are still going to have the problem that they won't be able to use the water from the Apis River to irrigate their fields. So definitely, the issue in Hammanskraal is not going to be resolved this month. And then I want to come. I mean, it's been clear that since the COVID closed down, that the revenue collection of the city has gone down. What we've also now seen from National Treasury, the grant, which is called the equitable share that's given to municipalities, will be reduced. But what has happened, the mayor has taken the decision, which he himself said, is that he's now increasing the budget. The budget under me was about 43 billion rands. But he has now increased the budget to 48 billion rands. And he's quite proud of it. But here's the thing. If you run a business and you have less income, how can you increase your expenditure? You simply cannot do that. If there's less income, you have to reduce your expenditure. Because now when he increases the budget to 48 billion, what he is saying, he's going to spend 48 billion rands. So where's the money going to come from? In fact, what is happening now, the city of Tshwane is running an unfunded budget. A budget that is not funded. So they're spending money that they don't have. And how do they do it? For instance, the big creditors, they don't pay, like Eskom, Rand Water, they don't pay them. Or they give them reduced payments. They use the money to pay the smaller creditors, the smaller service providers. So it's robbing Paul to pay Peter. And then what they also do, Because here's another problem that faced me when I entered the city. And I stated right from the start that the city was bankrupt. And the DA didn't like it that I stated that the city was bankrupt. But I said that the residents needed to know the truth. So when I looked at the financial statements, I also saw that payments were in arrears to service providers up to 8 months in arrears. And over the 2 years, we reduced that to 3 months. When National Treasury's regulations state that you have to pay a service provider within 1 month, we managed to improve it up to 3 months. Now here's the thing. When you spend more money than what you have, by the end of the financial year, there's going to be a lot of service providers that you haven't paid. So I suspect that 3 months will be more now. It will be a lot more. So eventually what they will do, the money due during this financial year, they will roll over into the next financial year. So they will use the new budget to pay existing creditors of this financial year. That's the only way that you can cope with an unfunded budget. So the clear truth is the financial situation in the city of Tshwane has not improved. And now I want to come back to the bad audit opinion, which will then go into how I left the city of Tshwane. Now, when that audit opinion was leaked in December 2022, I immediately asked the employees to start drafting a recovery plan. And we all worked very hard on the recovery plan over the Christmas period. By the 2nd of January, the recovery plan was ready to be implemented. And we did implement it. However, and this date I remember quite well, on the 7th of January, on a Saturday morning at 10:30, I was called into an online meeting with John Steenhuisen and Solly. And in that meeting, they then fired me. And John stated that he's merely a messenger and that it was a decision by the federal executive of the DA that I should be fired. And then he asked me a bizarre question. After he finished his statement, he asked me, "So how do you feel about being fired?" And what do you say? If someone fires you, you feel good. So in any case, the following days, I never received any formal notification from the DA that I was fired on the 7th of January. So I just went to the office and I continued working and I continued implementing the recovery plan. About 2 to 3 weeks after the 7th of January meeting where I was fired, I was called with all my MMCs to an online meeting to all the multi-party to present the recovery plan to the multi-party coalition leaders. So all the leaders were there, Herman Mashaba, all of John Steenhuisen, they were all there. So before the meeting started, we were all online, and before proceedings started, John then asked the chair of FF Plus whether he could have a private word with all the leaders and that we, the rest of us, should exit the meeting. The other multi-party leaders then refused. They refused to meet with him alone. They say, no, the mayor is here. The mayor must first present his recovery plan, and then we will have a discussion afterwards. And the FF Plus Mulder, he agreed. That's the way he was going to conduct the meeting. So I then presented the recovery plan. And after the recovery plan, And what I suspected, the reason why John wanted to meet with them alone was to inform them that he fired me already and he needed their support. He needed consensus of them, because ultimately I was appointed as mayor by the multi-party coalition leaders, not only by the DA. So after the discussion, there was quite a surprising event. The multi-party caucus, the multi-party coalition leaders then came out in support of me to continue as mayor. And they said that I needed to report back to them on a regular basis on the implementation of the recovery plan. So the meeting ended with the decision that I will continue as mayor. 3 weeks after that, I was called to another meeting. This time there was John Solly and 2 others, Thomas Walters and I think Fred Nell was also in the meeting. And it was again on a Saturday. And then again, they said, no, you can't continue as mayor, you need to step down. And we need your resignation letter immediately. So that was quite surprising, because the multi-party coalition leaders took a decision. And the DA then disrespected the decision and overturned the decision without informing the multi-party coalition leaders and without trying to seek or get their consensus, get their agreement.
So sorry, Mr. Williams, I just wanted to ask that, in relation to Celia being ousted as mayor, what's your view on that?
I'm coming there. I'm giving a chronological. You can cut out what you want to cut out. I'm giving a chronological account. I'm coming there.
Yeah.
So any case, so I was instructed, the instruction went to my chief of staff. He drafted the resignation letter, and the Sunday evening, the letter had to be delivered, sent to Helen, and Helen had to approve the resignation letter. And only after Helen approved the resignation, I then had to sign the resignation, and the resignation was announced the Monday morning. But the Monday morning, there was a whole problem again, because now the city was left without an executive. So when Solly went on the news, he then stated it was my fault, that I decided, they didn't tell, it was my decision to resign, and I should have resigned at the end of the month. When in fact it was their instruction that I should resign immediately. So he again was dishonest with the residents of the city of Tshwane. So they asked me to withdraw that letter and to redate it, change the date to the end of the month. But then, as it turned out, the opposition parties objected, and my resignation of that Monday morning was then final. So here's the thing. That wasn't an isolated event that happened on its own.